So I think with that, we're good.
Yeah, once Pat gets us, I think we're set, right, Pat? It says we're being live streamed.
It's now being streamed.
Okay. So I think we're just about ready. Pat or Casey, can you guys make sure you send that link to Missy so she can throw it up on the web too if you haven't already?
He's got it. So, meeting's all yours. I'm going to hand the host back over to Jaden.
Thank you. Jaden, you'll run as the host. You can grant us co-host if you want, but if you're available, we'll let you be the host for the meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
It's all yours.
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everybody. I just mentioned Rich is going to try to get in when he can. He's out working, and Cindy is not available today. She has given Dale Tribute her proxy. She is working on the wall. It's the Traveling Vietnam Wall, memorial wall down in Butte. So other than that, we have everybody on board, it looks like. So I want to thank you all for getting here. I know many of you are very, very, very busy times, and I can sympathize and understand that very much. So today our primary objective is to run back through the copy of our biennial report and the recommendations that we're going to put forward to the governor and the director through the governor, well, the governor through the director, and then the legislature. There will be this report will go to the legislature, and we'll be there to answer questions or present that report. I believe the 24th or 25th of October, or September, excuse me, to follow that up for them. Any questions in that regard? So, seeing none. We did have minutes go out that Jaden prepared for us. Dale had made some comments in regards to those minutes from the last meeting, and those are being incorporated into the final copy of those minutes. Were there any other comments about the minutes? I know Ray sent in a comment appreciating the minutes and the work Jaden did for that. Any other comments in that regard to the last meeting minutes? Hearing none. Then we'll move on to the biennial report. So all of you should have that draft. It's a fairly lengthy document when you add the EHA evaluation report. So that's kind of an addendum to the report, but the main report begins with that Private Land Public Wildlife Advisory Committee biennial report and recommendations. So I thought we would just go right through it page by page, and we'll move from each page after we discuss it. If anybody has any changes or footnotes or recommendations to changes in that regard. So front page, then we have the table of contents. Presume there's no comments there. Then on page, go ahead.
Next question, Mr. Chair. So it's your guys' report, and so you had made the comment about the elk hunting access addendum to it. If you want me to keep that there, I'm happy to do that. If you want us to take it off, I'm happy to do that as well. I just figured that's probably going to be a informational item that will be needed or requested quite often. So just that's why we've included it the last couple times. But if you guys want it or don't want it, I'm happy to do either way.
Anybody have any comment at this point in that regard? my comment I wrote on here, Jason, and maybe we'll do that when we get to it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so page 3 is just our overview of our purpose. And it's just informational to the governor and to the legislature as to what our function is. Everybody good there? Okay, page 3. And if I miss you, just raise your hand or speak up, okay, as we go through this. Then page 4 has the committee list, all of the members on the committee, and then the beginning of the recommendations. So, the first recommendation we have was the recommendation to update the Hunter Landowner Stewardship online course. And the requirement would be that once that is completed well, no, not really. Let me back up on that. That is a legislative ask. And we as a council need to bring that forward. The department isn't bringing it forward. So we would be bringing that forward and looking for a legislator to sponsor that in the upcoming session. We are going to have from ComEd, Greg and his crew is here to present where they're at with that at this point. So we would go through that to make sure we understand where we're at with it at this point in time, and then we can continue with that potential recommendation. I see Rod had his hand up.
Yep, Ron had his hand up, and then there's also.
No, I do. Eric, he's on, but he must be on as a guest or something. But he asked me to tell you that his hand is raised. I don't see him on here.
Okay, so yeah, we see him as a iPhone guest, so we'll make note that's Eric.
Yeah,
So,
Jen, can you go ahead and promote him to panelist, that iPhone guest with their hand raised?
Yep.
There you go, thank you.
Okay. So,
Eric, I assume that's you as an iPhone guest?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good deal.
so were you just letting us know you're there, or did you have a comment,
No,
Eric?
no, I just wanted you to know I was here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so
And Dale has a comment.
Dale, I see your hand.
Okay. On number 1, I don't know if you were getting ready to move to 2 or not, but our advisory council has had some discussion at past meetings on whether we wanted to try to make this mandatory by some way of inclusion in this, like when you go to buy your hunting license. I don't know that we've ever come to any kind of a final determination on that, but I'm just wondering if maybe that would be noted somewhere in that narrative that discussion has taken place. Thank you.
No, I think that's great, Dale. I'm just making a note. I think that's really helpful to put that in there, to include some of our discussion and how we arrived at creating an incentivized program versus a mandatory program. So we'll note that and do that. So we'll include that in the rationale. Paul, I see your hand.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions on this. So we're incentivized with 1 bonus point for 1 species of choice. Is that a lifetime bonus point?
So my understanding is where we concluded was that it would be a one-time bonus point, and once you drew, you would not maintain that bonus point. But we can have that discussion, because once the actual legislation is drafted, we would have to be very clear on that. So discussion on whether,
I got some more.
well,
Well,
let's deal with that one first.
Okay, so for me, one bonus point, that'll be nothing, no incentive for me to, because I put in for my archery elk, I get it every year, or I put in for an archery antelope, I get that every year. So I don't know where I would put a bonus point at. I wouldn't support just one bonus point. Now, Arizona does it. This is how Arizona does it, and I used to fly down there a lot. So they would give you an extra lifetime bonus point for any of all of their species that you had. And that carries with you for the rest of your life. So they give one for a hunter ed. So I took the hunter ed course. So I've got that bonus point that goes with everything that they have, elk, deer, sheep, all that. And it continues on forever until you don't hunt anymore. So, and then they've got an ethical course that they give you one bonus point that lasts for a lifetime too. So I don't think that one bonus point is going to incentivize anybody to, especially if you're going to lose that point in 1 year. So I wouldn't support just one bonus point. I would maybe support one for even moose, sheep, and goat. Why not? The only way you're going to get somebody to take this course, I think, incentivize them is to give them something that's worthwhile.
So your comment is lifetime across the board bonus point.
That's the only way I would support it, because one bonus point one time it's not going to incentivize anybody to do anything, I don't think.
Okay. Drew?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. It's not always wise to do things just to be simple, right? But I think when I really process and I've talked about this bonus point proposal with a lot of other people in the field, um, I think keeping it simple, if we're going to do it, would be the way to go. And the easiest and simplest way to do this would be to treat the bonus point the same way the department treats all the other bonus points. That way there's no extra or new set of rules that are confusing to the end user and that are possibly confusing to the department to implement. Um, I partially agree with Paul. I think the bonus point statistically isn't really going to do a lot for a lot of hunters, but I think the optics of it, and I think us and the department and then everybody coming to a consensus that, hey, we have this program, we think it can help with hunter behavior, which is one of the things that we're trying to tackle here, is we're trying to promote better hunter behavior. Here's the carrot of the bonus point, and to some people it does make a difference, and I think it would incentivize some people to do it. If we do it, I think treating it as bonus points are treated now would be the smoothest, best, easiest, whatever adjective you want to use there, would be the best way to go forward with that. Thank you.
So Drew, let me ask a question to clarify that. So looking at the slate of opportunities to use a bonus point, so all the way across, right, you get one bonus point. Are you saying that you take the course, you get the bonus point, and then if you draw a species, so let's say you draw moose, then that clears your bonus points on moose, as it does currently, including the lifetime bonus point. But it remains on the rest of them that you didn't draw?
Well, that's, so that's one of the details. I don't know that we should be giving you a bonus point to put on everything, right? I think if you are, Joe Lunchbox Hunter, myself, right? Drew, you take this course, you get one bonus point to pick for one species. I can apply it to where I think it will help me the most. And again, that's going to be different for everybody. Some people are going to want it for something easy to draw, and some people are going to want to stick it onto one of those big three. It doesn't matter where you allocate that point. That should be a personal choice. And yes, once you draw that species, that point then goes away. What we don't want to add to anymore is point creep, and point creep is a real thing. And I think if we, for the rest of your life, as long as you're a paying license holding hunter, I think it just causes more problems long term.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Stephanie?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I agree with Drew. I get Paul's point that it feels like it's not that big of a deal, but everybody I've talked to has said that they think that it's awesome and that they would definitely do it. I think doing a lifetime bonus point, I think there's some other issues with it. We've got things like archery antelope, for instance, that isn't necessarily an always draw. So if you had a bonus point that you could apply to archery antelope, for instance, then you would be guaranteeing yourself every year drawing that, and it would kind of be a little bit unfair. Some of the elk permits also, I mean, I can see them going to that, hey, you have 1 or 2 bonus points, you're guaranteed to draw it. If you've got that bonus point attached, the way now the bonus point when you buy it that year, it'll give you 2 every year to go into that drawing. And again, it kind of tips the scales on those bonus points. So I'm in favor of a one-time bonus point until you draw the tag, applied as you see fit. I also am with Drew. I could see this being an issue if it was a lifetime with point creep.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Other comments? None. No other comments. So are you up again, Paul?
Yeah. So as I understood before, it wouldn't be for moose, sheep, and goat, but you're saying it would be for moose, sheep, and goat?
That's what we're talking about.
Well, I know there was some conversation before that we wouldn't use it for moose, sheep, or goat, but if we do it for that, that's a different scenario.
So
Just to clarify what we're voting on.
well, we're not voting yet.
I mean,
we've already come to a consensus that we want to put forward legislation to incentivize the new course with a bonus point. We did not hammer out the details, and that's clear right here. So I'm going to suggest this. I think this council has worked hard on that discussion about mandatory versus incentivizing with a bonus point, and we clearly talked about that for well over a year, maybe 2. And so I think we're clear on that. I'm making that assumption on behalf of all of you. So I'm going to suggest then that we continue on with this, and I'm going to ask Drew, and I know Drew's really busy, Paul and Stephanie, that within 1 week, so by next Wednesday, we flesh out a draft of the specifics to the bonus point proposal. So Drew's thumbs up. Stephanie, can you do that? Paul, can you do that? I can't see you, but say yes or no.
yes, I can do that.
Okay, so if anybody else objects to that, would you please raise your hand or say so? Okay, so by next Wednesday, and I'll get on with you guys. So there'd be 4 of us, and we will come up with a specific proposal within this, and then we will email that to everybody on the council. And then if we need to, we'll call a meeting on Zoom to address that specific language. Okay? So if anybody objects, please indicate so right now. So we're going to flesh that out specifically and come up with specific language that we're going to recommend to be put into the legislation. All right. So we're going to have ComEd go through where they're at with this course, but is there any other comment on that final recommendation, number one? So the legislation itself, we have to hammer out the rationale. Dale made some comment on that in regards to including in the language, the discussion about mandatory. Any other questions or concerns in that recommendation one before we hear from ComEd? Seeing none, I would ask then for Greg Lemon to get on and give us the heads up, the update on where you're at this point. And I think he had sent out, I think just yesterday, we got some information on that course introduction as it stands today. You would have received that in an email yesterday. Greg?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I apologize. I'm not going to have my camera on today. You'd rather watch the videos than see me anyway. So what we had talked about months ago and have talked about for a couple of years, we've got this, went through and updated this course. This has been a big lift for Francis and Sarah. They're both on. And then our video team, Lauren, in particular, she took the lead on all the video work for this. So the process we went through is we went through and analyzed the old course, looked at learning objectives, and then looked at ways to meet those learning objectives in a more sort of clear and direct format, with leaning heavily on the video rather than on people reading the content. So you have we, like Ed mentioned, we sent around the test, the questions and the content last night. So I don't know, Sarah, I'm gonna maybe lean on you. Should we just jump into video one, or should we give a little more of an introduction to the content, or how do you want to?
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Yeah, I'd turn that over to the committee. I know Jason has seen the videos, so what we could do is just sort of go through the series of videos. And then, as Greg noted, you've got the questions that are labeled and sort of correspond to each of the videos. So I think that would be a good idea, unless, Ed, you want to address questions and thoughts first?
No, I think we can go that way. I do see Dale has his hands up with a question.
Yeah, did you say something was emailed to us yesterday? Because I did not receive anything yesterday.
From me.
Thank you.
It came from Jason. And it was probably 4 o'clock, Dale.
3:22, but I'll resend it to you. Anybody else need it?
Stephanie, do you need it?
Okay.
Yes, please. Sorry.
Jason, I didn't get it either.
Okay. It's called HLSP questions for videos. It was sent at 3:22 yesterday.
I do see it. Sorry, Jason.
Had the report, the agenda, and this draft document. So I will resend it to you guys.
So,
Jason.
hey, before we move forward, then I would like to preface this. So there's 2 issues here. One, to be clear for our council, one is bringing this request for legislation forward, okay? And that's up to us, no matter what the status of this video update is at this point, and we can include in legislation language that would allow it to begin when it's ready, but also have that legislation in place to prompt this to move forward and be ready to go. So I just want to clarify that, since we all just are taking a look at this right now at this moment.
Yeah, Ed, and I would also add that this update is going to be ready this fall. So this will be in place this fall. And so anything that goes through the legislature is going to have some sort of an adoption date on it. And, if we do have changes or updates that we want to make to this content, my guess is there'll be a timeline to be able to do that between any potential legislative action towards that bonus point issue.
Okay, Stephanie, you have a question?
Yep. So, Greg, anybody who takes this prior to the legislative session, and if that bonus point goes through, will they retrospectively get a bonus point, or do they have to take it after the legislative session? How would that work?
So that's going to depend on how the legislation would be written and adopted. So I think that would probably have to be taken up in the legislation. There isn't a fee for taking this. And so, there's no reason people can take it multiple times.
Okay. Greg, looks like you're on. Or
Okay.
Sarah.
Okay, so I think the smoothest way would be to go through video 1 and then talk about the content for video 1, and then ask any, we can have any questions or not. It's up to you guys. But I think that might be the smoothest way to go. Let me get this shared. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Video?
Yep, we see Lauren.
Okay.
In Montana, hunting is more than a recreational pursuit. For generations, across cultures, around the globe.
Is it loud enough for folks?
No, I could barely hear it.
Okay,
No.
Greg, do you mind pausing and increasing the volume and also maximizing your screen by chance?
Okay.
Please, thank you.
It could be our internet connection too, but it's buffering a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's just Helena.
Okay.
Does that make it bigger when I maximize?
Yep.
Looks good.
Okay, let's try this again.
In Montana, hunting is more than a recreational pursuit. For generations, across cultures, around the globe, hunting has offered connection to land, family, community, and heritage.
Successful hunting requires knowledge, skill, preparation, ethics, and access. Though Montana boasts impressive public land access opportunities for hunting, 64% of the state is privately owned. Property owners, both urban and rural, enjoy the right to say who can access their land.
That must be buffering for you guys too, huh?
Yep. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I don't think my computer's functioning right. Let me get, Sarah, can you share this?
Yeah, I can. I have it pulled up here, so let me try. Apologies, everybody. So I'm sending a request to share because I think you were sharing. There we go. We'll give this a try. Okay. Let's try this again.
In Montana, hunting is more than a recreational pursuit. For generations, across cultures, around the globe, hunting has offered connection to land, family, community, and heritage.
Successful hunting requires knowledge, skill, preparation, ethics, and access. Though Montana boasts impressive public land access opportunities for hunting, 64% of the state is privately owned. Property owners, both urban and rural, enjoy the right to say who can access their land and how. Though FWP is dedicated to fostering public hunting on private lands through voluntary access programs, hunters share in the responsibility of maintaining that access.
The Hunter Landowner Stewardship Project aims to strengthen the relationship between hunters and landowners. In this course, you'll learn the importance of working lands, how to access private lands, the best practices while you're there, and key knowledge related to hunter safety, natural resources, personal responsibility, and the importance of developing your own hunting ethics.
The future of hunting relies on protecting the enduring relationship between landowners and hunters. Remember, it's all up to us. Respect the access, protect the hunt.
Okay, I've stopped sharing. That's sort of the intro video.
So you'll see on the that kind of goes through the course introduction, the 2 questions just based on that. Any thoughts or questions? Can I just keep trucking?
Anybody? Any comments from the field here? Okay, let's keep rolling.
Hey, Sarah, I don't know if it's a setting. We're running through your speakers or something rather than actual through, I don't know if it.
Did you, when you shared, did you click the, Sarah, on the, there's a little box to click for share audio?
Let me see. Okay. It's not letting me select that option.
That's fine. We can still use what you had.
Is it working okay? You can hear?
Yeah.
Okay.
You may need to stop sharing your video just because it was buffering as well, but it could be just our end.
Since the 1940s, Montana FWP has offered hunter safety classes, focusing on firearm handling, fair chase practices, and hunting ethics, and more. Today, everyone born after January 1st, 1985 must take hunter education to purchase a hunting license in Montana. Hunter education offers foundational safety skills and knowledge that every hunter, novice and experienced, should know and practice.
Hunting safely is your responsibility, especially when you're hunting on private lands where unique scenarios and challenges can occur.
While you're out hunting, farmers and ranchers are often out working. It is wise to assume there are people out on the landscape, livestock in nearby fields, and even other hunters accessing the same areas. You should be aware of your surroundings and respectful of nearby people, pets, homes, outbuildings, farm machinery, and vehicles. Hunters should practice the 4 rules of firearm safety every time they go hunting. Rules 1 and 2 are simple, yet critically important. Always treat every firearm as though it's loaded, and always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, away from anything you don't intend to shoot. Most hunting incidents are preventable and occur because of careless firearm. The next rule is a logical extension. Keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. The last rule of firearm safety is less straightforward, but is especially important on private land. Be aware of your target and beyond.
Imagine it's the final week of general hunting season, and you spot an elk on the crest of a hill. You're close enough to take a good shot, but should you? The answer is no. If you can't see what's behind your target, like that skylined elk, never take that shot.
Along with prioritizing safe firearm handling, you must consider the safe zone of fire. This changes with each step. The number of hunters, the lay of the land, and the land ownership. Avoid moving towards or near people, pets, livestock, houses, buildings, and vehicles. Keeping track of your safe zone of fire is always essential, especially while you're on working lands.
So then video 2, the assessment questions for that are 3, 4, and 5.
Dale, you have a question?
Well, I do, or a comment. It was a little bit hard for me to hear, but I thought I heard twice on that video when they were talking about the 4 firearms rules that those were important, especially on private land. And I think we need to be really careful about that. They're important on any lands. I don't think they're any more or any less important on private lands. They're important all the time. And I guess as a hunter ed instructor, I would like to see that maybe rectified, because again, I think it sends, may not be huge, but I do think it sends a little bit of a message that one specifically was know your target and beyond. It said, and it's especially true on private land. I would say it's true all the time whenever you're hunting. And then there was another reference as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I'm just looking at the script, and I do think there's a good emphasis on every time they go hunting, practice the 4 rules of firearm safety. And I think the emphasis was on keeping track of your safe zone of fire. And the script is, it's essential always, especially while on working lands. And I think we're just trying to emphasize the difference in, like, there's stuff going on and maybe more things to be paying attention to in terms of your safe zone of fire. So, but I appreciate the comment, and we'll take a look at that again and make sure that there's not an incorrect emphasis.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yep. Okay. All right, I'll share video 3.
Preparing for your hunt is nearly as important as your behavior out in the field. What lands are you accessing? Are they federal, state, or privately owned? If they're private, how do you plan to get permission? Did you know you needed permission?
64% of Montana is private land. Private property owners have expectations and rights, no matter if they own a home in town or a large livestock operation. Like you, rural landowners have a right to say who can and who cannot access their property. If you hunt on private property without permission, you are trespassing. You can be cited under Montana law.
Since 1985, the FWP has facilitated public hunting access on private land through the block management program.
Landowners voluntarily enroll and receive benefits for providing public access on their lands that Fish, Wildlife, and Parks will help manage. There are different types of block management areas, so be sure you know before you go which type of hunting and how to seek permission. It's helpful, too, to have an access backup plan in case of last-minute changes. Fish, Wildlife, and Parks also facilitates private land access and access to isolated public lands through other programs like unlocking public lands, public access land agreements, and the Upland Game Bird Enhancement Program, among others. You can find out more information about Fish and Wildlife Parks landowner programs on their website.
Tools like FWP's Hunt Planner can get you started, while mobile apps like Onyx and Aventa can provide more information while afield. Make sure to check the hunting regulation for the area where you plan to hunt and know the landowner's specific rules. In addition to specifying who's allowed access, landowners can establish rules on the number of people allowed, the game hunters can harvest, how hunters can retrieve game, and more. Hunters are expected to know and follow all conditions for access on private lands. So you've got a plan, you have permission, and you signed into a block management area, and you head into the field. The day is crisp and clear. An hour later, you're tracking your quarry along a fence line. You spot a buck and take a safe, legal shot. Though you've hit it, it doesn't drop. Instead, the animal scrambles and bounds over the fence. You know from your map that the deer has just crossed onto a neighboring property where the landowner doesn't allow hunting. What do you do? Should you have taken the shot? Scenarios like this are common and underscore the importance of preparation and taking full responsibility of your actions.
So video 3 has questions 6 and 7 for some kind of assessment, and then we did include sort of a narrative spotlight on the block management program with a little more information that folks who take the course can read about the different types of block management areas. And then there are a couple questions 8 and 9 that seek to kind of clarify knowledge about block management, the block management program.
So, Sarah,
Yes.
on question 6, so the correct answer, I think I would like to see a little nuance in some of these questions and answers. So like, why is obtaining permission crucial? And the correct answer is permission is legally required. I think it would be good to include, and it creates or begins a good working relationship between a hunter and landowner. We know, everybody knows permission's required, but I think we're missing that part, and that's one of the things we've identified in the block program, especially at type 1, is it kind of works around creating that relationship a bit. Granted, the landowner wants it that way, but I think to make the point that it begins creating a good working relationship, I would like to see in there.
Great.
And then on 7, as you showed the video, and it shows the online portion of when you're planning your hunt. And I haven't looked this year, but when you go to look at those programs, the most successful obviously is Block. The second most successful is Pala. And my experience of looking at how to access Pala on that website, and maybe it's changed, is not very clear or helpful to the hunter. So I just ask that you make sure that that connection is clear, and maybe move Pala to second, only because there's only like 4 unlocking public lands agreements. So they're going to look at Block, then Pala. But just so it's clear, when you click on that little key down there that says public access landowner agreements, that the data is clear. Where is that and how to get there?
Great. That's great, Ed. We can make those changes. And in response to your first thought, I would just direct you to question 10, which is associated with video 4, which maybe tries to get at a little bit of that maintaining a positive relationship with landowners related to basically being a good visitor when you're on working lands. And so maybe that achieves a bit of that emphasis, but we can definitely integrate it earlier too.
Drew?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciated that last video snippet where you guys presented a topic that is tough, is gray, and when we talked about this with Greg, like Ed said a couple of years ago, I think it's really important to get past some of the real basic things that we are covering really well in Hunter's Ed, and to pose some of these really tough questions, and to follow up with some information or links for people to investigate and get more information about certain topics. I don't expect us to talk about all the hot topic issues on these videos, but I think we have to dive into some of them, especially if we're going to make this worthwhile for a legislator to say, hey, FWP has a program that is really next level to help bridge that gap and to reduce some of those conflicts. That's why we're proposing legislation here. So more of those, I think, would be the more the better.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Sharing, are you ready, Ed, for video 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember,
Let me share here.
hunting on private land is a privilege. Here are some key considerations to leave no trace.
One of the biggest problems private landowners face when allowing public access on their lands is dealing with trash afterwards. If you access those lands, make sure you carry all of the litter out. And if you have to go to the bathroom, be respectful of that landowner, bury it, hide it, don't leave it exposed by an open gate.
Another key consideration for hunting working lands is the impact of your vehicle. Is it raining and muddy? Do you know which fields to avoid because of crops or livestock? Was that gate open or closed?
You should always follow all landowner rules regarding which areas are accessible by vehicle or foot only. Leave gates as you find them, know how to identify and avoid driving through noxious weeds, and do not drive off-road. Park in tall grass, throw cigarettes on the ground, or start campfires when it's hot and dry. Weeds and wildland fire are critical concerns to landowners that can jeopardize their land, livestock, and livelihoods.
If you're hunting with dogs, make sure you keep them on a leash when you're visiting that landowner. And if you drive into his driveway, leave your dog in the vehicle. And by all means, if he does get out, don't let him around livestock.
Being safe and respectful, following Montana law and landowners' rules, learning about working lands, and keeping private landowners' rights in mind are important ways to ensure you're doing your part in helping landowners and other hunters alike.
So video 4's assessment questions are 10 through 14, and then there's a spotlight with narrative information on gates specifically, with 3 main points. Don't block the gate. What does that mean? Leave gates as you find them, what that means and what the implications are if you don't. And then the importance of closing gates securely, with a little bit of a tip for how to do that if you're if they give you some difficulty, which they can. And then 2 final assessment questions after that section. And then I can play the conclusion video, and then we could talk about all of them, or we could talk about video 4 as well.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
Jason, just a thought as you as we work through that last video. One of the things that comes to mind is that some BMAs in general have no fires allowed, period. Doesn't matter if it's hot or dry or the conditions. So I don't know if there's a way to somehow maybe like ask for preference from the landowner on how to handle fires, because so there's some BMAs for sure that have rules that are explicit: no fires. Doesn't matter if it rained 4 inches yesterday or not, just no fires in general. So just a
Great.
thought.
Okay, yep, we can fix that.
Just caught me as we went through that one this time.
And Sarah, Ed here, to the same point, just an emphasis that every block management, as Jason said, has its own rules. Fires clearly, road access clearly, and then an issue that's kind of more recent is e-bikes. So some landowners allow and some do not. And I think we can't really overemphasize that a hunter needs to read the block management rules of that BMA and understand that those are rules that are in place to help that landowner and provide access in a way that's acceptable to that landowner. many hunters that I've encountered think they're all the same rules, you know, block management, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, they're not. You know, you cannot presume that. So I think we need to emphasize that a little bit more somewhere.
Great. Okay.
Stephanie, I see your hand. Thanks.
Yep. I don't know if it would be possible, but it might be nice to show like on those block, like if you look at the map on the back, it's got the rules. It might be good to show in the video, like, you know, show that rule list just in the video.
Great. Okay.
And say where they can find it. You know, like you can find individual rules at WP.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. And last video.
Okay.
Okay.
In this course, we learned and reviewed the importance of firearm safety, the considerations for hunting on private land, and the critical importance of taking responsibility for your actions. All the topics we've covered can and should inform your personal hunting ethics, or the moral principles that help you distinguish between right and wrong. Was it right to shoot that skylined elk or that deer on a property boundary? These in-the-moment decisions are up to you, but the implications of your decisions are much farther reaching. Your actions impact not only your safety, but the safety, property, and livelihoods of those around you. Your actions impact the future of hunting for all hunters. Be prepared, be respectful, and make the right choice, even when no one's watching. Remember, it's up to us. Respect access, protect the hunt.
Okay, let's go around here real quick with comments, just a quick feedback, and I'll start maybe with Ray. Ray, do you have any comment you'd like to put forward? I think you're muted.
He is muted.
There you go.
Yeah, I say I can't do these technical things, but no, I think the video is good. And that one thing I noticed though through it, a lot of the same pictures and that I was that was one thing that caught my attention. The information on it is real good, I thought.
All right, thank you, Ray. How about Donna?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Ray. The same information. The same pictures were on there a couple of different times. The only thing is, I thought they were great. I thought they were informative. I thought the message was clear, well focused. One personal question for you, Ed. How do you feel about the Sportsman Warehouse hats?
Well, you know, I was going to get to that later. And ask them to Photoshop mine in over the top of that, especially since this is a public meeting. Yeah.
All right, but no, I think they did a good job, well thought out and pretty direct on the message, which I think is extremely important.
Thanks, Donna. Eric.
I thought it was it's well done. Well put together.
Any feedback?
No.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Stephanie?
I thought it's a huge upgrade, and you guys did a great job with the videography and the interviews. Much better than what was in place before. Thank you.
How about up there in Glasgow?
Oh, I think it was well done. I had a question on question number 13, since Rich isn't here. that maybe the correct answer should be all of the above? No, sometimes it's hard to dig a 6-inch hole on a hard pan flat, so it's fine. I'm just being facetious. Ask to use the bathroom of the landowner's residence. Or C, or leave human waste on the ground in the parking area. Usually it's by a gate. I think sometimes they have trouble with the gate. And the physics will hit them. So no, it's fine. It's well done.
So what's your block management number? We can maybe put an asterisk down on you.
Well, it happens anyway, guys. You just don't get mad. Usually your landowner's got a shovel, got a pomida bag he can put it in. He doesn't like looking at it, clean it up, but it's fine. So I think it's well done.
All right, thank you, Lee.
Yeah, Mike.
Let's see, Dale.
I thought it was well done. A concern I've had since we started this, that it was just going to be way too basic, and I liked it. I liked the length. I mean, someone's going to have to be committed to it to watch through all those videos, but it's still not excessive. I like the length, and I like the content with the few tweaks that have been suggested. Thanks.
Thanks, Dale. Do you think you have any comment from Cindy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just checking. Paul.
I think it's good. I didn't have any other comments or criticism.
Okay. And did I miss anybody on our crew? Oh, I know Drew wants, see, Donna's question, Drew wants Sitka on the hat. But I'll fight you for that. Yeah, Drew, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, much improved. Thank you all for putting this together and showing. I guess if I had to give some constructive criticism, I'd say there are still other topics I think that we could address on there. I think we go into a little more depth and maybe try and tackle some of those harder things. I think that shooting on the boundary question was one of those examples of a question or an ethical question that is hard, and I think we can go into more depth on those types of things. Obviously, we have to cover a lot of the basics like cat holes, right? And those things are always good to cover. What was the other thing I had for you on that? I think just being, again, I think we could be a little more robust on difficult questions. And then from the landowner perspective, this was all geared towards that hunter accessing private lands. Maybe there's a snippet of something from the other side of that fence and working backwards. I'm not sure if we can incorporate anything there. And maybe that's just a bunch of links to, hey, do you like what you're seeing here, and do you want to participate more with us? Here's some options or opportunities to be more involved with fish, wildlife, and parks as we work a common goal. So thank you all. That's all I have.
Thanks, Drew. And then I think I missed Rod.
Yeah, I thought it was real well done. Hats off to that. I guess I'm going to go right back to the other thing. I wish it could go hand in hand with supporting legislation to increase fines and penalties for poor hunter behavior, and I think we'd get there. But that's a whole different topic. But no, I thought it was well done. Thank you.
I have a bulleted list from Rich.
Say that.
I have a bulleted list from Rich. Would you
on this?
Mm-hmm. At least on the questions.
Okay. So Jason has received an email from Rich in regards to the questions. So he's going to go through those with us.
Okay, so Rich Roth sent me an email last night after I sent out those questions. It was just late, so I'll just read a bulleted list for you guys. I sent it on to Sarah and Greg this morning, but for the committee's knowledge, this is from Rich. It says, what lands can you drive on and which ones are not? Deeded, DNRC, BLM. people in the West typically think any non-private lands are drivable lands. They're also used to Forest Service. So that's one area that we have also encountered, you know, what does DNRC's closed unless open versus BLM open unless closed kind of stuff. His next bullet point, is there a way to show pictures of knapweed and spurge or other noxious weeds as people identify which is which and why they are bad? The next bullet is, do people know the rules of DNRC? Do they know the colors on a map indicate such as blue for DNRC and yellow for BLM? The next is, does the video show what roads look like when they have been traveled on, muddy/wet? I think there's a little bit of screen in there for that. Point 11 of the questions, he says, is there room for something like staying on the 2-track or established road? In some of my worst places where roads get wet or hold water, people just make tracks to the right of the, or left of the wet spot. Eventually, there are multiple 2-tracks, which deluviates the property, state, federal, or private.
Devalues.
Oh, devalues. Sorry, can't read. In my experience, gates are oftentimes opened by a hunter in an area where the owners may not see until too late. They are not always a road the owner travels. A hunter opens a gate, can't close it, leaves it open, and so the next hunter does the same. There may not be a one answer fits all for this, but it's been my experience. Next one is, knapweed in my area has sprung up off the county road where people park to access state lands. I have documented the majority of vehicles that park there, and they're predominantly from western Montana, thus the introduction. Would it be something to encourage hunters to check their gear, wash their vehicles to help minimize the spread? Maybe even some facts about what the state spends on noxious weeds a year. Bendentata is a new species of noxious weed coming to our area fast, also from western Montana. The next one is, in my area, it's not always easy for hunters to park on the side of the roads, or even worse, from then park in the tall grass off the road. Is there a way to encourage fire suppression supplies like pick packs or fire extinguishers? And then he has, as I mentioned before, people don't know the DNRC rules for open fires. This is a huge problem in my area as everyone seems to be packing a fire pit and some wood. How can these tips be passed along? And lastly, from PLPW, I would hope we could suggest and encourage the various agencies to work together more and patrol more, or just have presence even in off season. Every time I have passed along a situation to FWP, they say it's DNRC or BLM and vice versa. It's always someone else's problem. This would go a long ways towards landowner relations. That's what I got from Rich.
Okay, great points. I want to make a couple observations. First, I appreciate the update. It's a good, fresh look at where we are today, and I appreciate that fact. It's really good to see. And if we had just watched the old one, it would really stand out in stark contrast, I believe. A couple of points that I think kind of to Drew's too, but driving home to the folks who take this is really emphasizing whose responsibility. This whole campaign, it's up to us. And you do mention it in there, but whose responsibility is all this? You know, to find our access, you know, have that second plan and know our access. And that gets probably more to Rich's points. You're, especially in eastern, mid-eastern Montana, you're traversing lands that vary. Every mile it's a different property. And I think that makes it complicated that hunters don't pay attention to it. So somehow to emphasize that it is your responsibility to know what you're in and what you're on and going through. So I would hope we could look at that a little more. A couple of the other things that are hot topics, you know, we dealt with the toilet paper a little bit here, and we dealt with the border fences, but I believe that the real nasty things like shooting elk in a herd or flock shooting elk, they are not birds. You know, I think that's one of the issues that is very, creates a bad image for hunters, is very detrimental to the relationship with landowners. It's not ethical, and it's bad behavior. So that's one I'd like to see some discussion about. And then somehow, we've talked a lot about more boots on the ground, and we know that's always going to be short. So policing ourselves as hunters, if you could incorporate something along that line, how do we as hunters help on the ground with things that we see are wrong? How do we take accountability, responsibility to address that as hunters? I think would be a really good point to make. My last thing is the first program never even really mentioned block management. And this one does a phenomenal job on going over to the private side, recognizing how much private land there is and addressing those issues. Somebody mentioned it though. I think a lot of people just want to hunt public land to avoid any whatever. So just a little more emphasis that how we treat private land is critical. How we treat our own land is equally critical in this whole equation of hunting. So, yeah. To Rich's points on roads, just because it's a DNRC road or a BLM road doesn't mean just because we can get on it that we should rip it up. So, I appreciate where you guys are at. It's definitely a good thing, as everybody said here, and I just want to reemphasize that, appreciating your work and getting that going. And if you would just change that hat, I'll be really happy.
We gotta come down and get outfitted with Capital Sports hats, so we've got enough for all of our models.
I've got 12 in my truck right now.
Well, I want to mention before we get too far along, Sarah and Francis were a big part of this, and Lauren as well. And we really wanted to take a fresh look at it. I'm glad that for the most part, with a few changes and a few critiques here and there, that it was a positive. You guys see it as a positive change. We do. We think it's something that we can market. We think it's going to get a good reception. We think that even outside of this group, we think that our partner organizations that help us spread that it's up to us message, I think they're going to like it and want to help us spread that message. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really grateful for the runway with PLPW to get this done and all the feedback we've gotten. So I just wanted to start with that. As for specific sort of changes, there's probably going to be some that we're going to be able to tackle fairly easy, and some are going to take a little more effort. And so, like I mentioned at the start of this, even though it took us a long time to get the old one redone, I think now that we've got a new format and we've got sort of a team working on it, and I think it's going to be a lot easier to make some of those updates, immediately, or, kind of formulate a plan for getting some of that video content and other things for next fall. So Sarah or Francis, I don't know if there's anything you guys wanted to add to that.
I don't think so, Greg. I think you're right. I see, just from all the feedback, I see areas where we can sort of make changes and incorporate some things. And I'm even thinking like another video potentially that really drills down on the ethical questions that especially Ed and Drew mentioned, and maybe some more scenario-based stuff. I think the video format lends itself much better to really addressing those quandaries and kind of illustrating what that looks like on the ground versus the narrative form of the program. So, and then there are other ways that we can integrate a little more of that key information, like from Rich's comments, we could integrate some photos of some really common weeds if we felt like that would be helpful. So I see ways for integrating some of these changes, and I'm happy to continue working on it.
Well, thank you all for that. And I see Rich has joined us and he has his hand up. So Rich, jump in.
Hey, sorry everybody. I was just telling you I'm in for a little bit. I just heard Sarah mention a comment about the weeds pictures or something. Thank you for that. I just didn't know where I was in the conversation. I apologize everybody for not being on time.
So what we just finished with, Rich, is the presentation on the new Hunter Landowner Stewardship course. And then we just concluded with the comments you sent to Jason. And he read through those, and that was good information. And we'll take those points into consideration.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Thanks for the update. Sorry I was late.
No, that's great. We really appreciate you getting on there. So to wrap this up, a couple of points. So since most of you just looked at the course introduction sheet that was emailed yesterday, would you please read through those questions, make any comments, and you can either send them to me or Jason. Jason, good? Okay. So in order to skip me and get right to the point, just send those to Jason and he can forward them to the comment department. I see, Sarah, you have your hand up. Would you prefer it another way?
No, I love that. And I was just going to offer too that we can share the YouTube video links so that people, especially right after this, can go on and like play the videos again. And really, it's really hard just to see them once and digest everything. And so if you have subsequent feedback, we'd be happy to share those links with you and folks can watch them, especially Rich and others. Thanks.
I really appreciate you offering that because I was going to ask if we could do that and get a good hard look at it. So first impressions are most important though, and I think the first impressions are very positive. So, okay, so where we're at on that recommendation 1 to create legislation for this, we're going to fill in the blanks. Again, Paul, Drew, and Stephanie and myself will tackle that over the course of the next week, communicate with everybody, and get back with that result. Okay. We may not punch out every single word in legislation because that's going to be drafted by people that know how to do that the best. But that's what we'll do. We'll answer those questions about points, bonus points, how they sit, how we recommend, and we'll get everybody's approval on that. Okay. So then any final comment, question, concern on that first recommendation? Or are you ready to go to the next? If you have a question or concern, raise your hand or comment. Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna jump. Is Rich still on there? Yeah. So since Rich is here, I am going to have you turn to page 5 and go down to that 5. No, I'm sorry, page 6, recommendation number 8. And so if you can find that in your report, so recommendation number 8 that we were making was to have the department undertake an effort to be more directly in regular contact relationship with realtors or new landowners to assist bridging the gap with new landowners, to be more proactive in creating better community situations as the sale of working ag lands results in access being lost and lands being taken out of production or managed for amenity. So I'd like to have Rich had done some work on that. I don't know if you're able to get that completed, but if we can jump to that one and have Rich take off with that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And I reached out to a couple of the realtors that I've worked with in the past, this Mike Swan and Dave Johnson. Mike is from Swan Land the company, and then Dave Johnson is with Holland Hall. Unfortunately, I haven't got a lot of feedback from them yet. I apologize, but I know in past discussions with them a little bit, sometimes that I think there is an opportunity. I'll have to report back on how much. I mean, they have staff, on hand as they talk to these new people coming in, but I think it's more a directive of having that available for them to, I guess, make a point to bring those things up because when you look at the maps that they're showing when someone comes and looks at a parcel of land or things like that, they're both really good companies at showing what is Forest Service deeded, BLM, all of those things. But it seems to me, and just again having discussions and driving around with them and this isn't a follow-up to what, like I said, I'd asked them some specific questions in my emails and voice messages to them. I just haven't heard back yet. Is that, what are you seeing out there in terms of what people are struggling with or are looking, and most of the time it's just in this general conversation it's kind of after the fact, and really educating them. So I said I will have some more stuff from them. I hope to get some good, or I guess more direct feedback from them for Ed, but right, like I said, I reached out an email and phone, and I have not heard back yet. I was hoping to, but I didn't. But I will, to kind of see how we want to do this, because I think it is an area of I guess first beginning this education process of new owners to properties, even property owners, just in our own situation here, just something I'm dealing with right now, where a person has purchased some property right in the center of a BLM section, down in the breaks. And this person is from Montana, but has never owned land. And there's already been some just a learning curve for that person, just even being a new landowner and access to his land through state land or BLM land, those types of things. Just and finding out how naive he admittingly is on what to do, and you don't just buy a piece of property without checking through these different things, because sometimes you might buy a piece of property, but you by certain state law, you then, just because you bought the property doesn't mean you have access to the property. So there's kind of a steep learning curve in some of these situations. So that's why I think there's an opportunity there.
So Rich, in regards to this, this is simply a recommendation. Do you think we should put this recommendation forward at this point in time? Or is it your opinion to flesh this out more thoroughly in the next year and bring it at the following report? What's your gut feeling?
Well, I was hoping to have more to say to bring it right now, but I guess because the one thing I'm concerned about, and it's possibly why I haven't heard back, not that I don't have a relationship with those guys, but I guess I'm a little bit wondering what they might be thinking about, the acts. I mean, they're professionals in what they do, and you would think that they would have all that. So I was hoping to get a little bit more feedback as to whether it's something that realtors feel is a part of what they, either could incorporate into what they're doing or not, if they feel there's a need there or not. Being completely blunt about the whole situation, when I think of the realtor kind of situation, and nothing against it, it's, a lot of times it's the sale that's the most important, not really anything else. And I'm not trying to say that those companies aren't, viable or honorable in their intentions. It's just I need to get some more feedback, unfortunately. And I think before I can really say that I've got something, and I've talked to two of probably the best, or at least two of the best, I think, realtor companies in the state. I haven't got enough to go on yet.
Okay, I appreciate that, Rich. So let's hash this out. With that in mind, I mean, we identified this as a concern for access in the future, happening now and in a big way, but also in the future. So do we just want to make a a statement about it at this point in our report, or we would like to dissect this a little more.
I'd like to just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that we certainly say that it's something, because it obviously came up as a recommendation. So we obviously feel there was some need, but if you would allow me, I apologize to everyone for not having more to go on. I do think I have some relationship with them to get some information. I unfortunately didn't have it in time for today's meeting. I'd like to be able to get that information and have something tangible to give back to the group that we could do something with. And I can even email that to the group if I get it here, in the next week or so. It's just going to probably take a little bit more groundwork on my part.
Okay. And, Rich, one of the things that I had sent to Jason was just other future concerns to mention. And this was within that land ownership changes, technology, and then last land trust, et cetera, competing with access opportunity. Do you want to, I guess what I'm hearing from you is to go ahead and try to flesh this out a little more from your perspective and your experience, and see if we can come up with where we want to go with it at this point. Is that correct?
Because I do think that the realtors will have some input. I think they're one of the first, facets of the whole, buying process in the state. When we talk about that, I think there's more to that than that. I don't want to drag the thing out by any means. I just didn't have it in time. I think I would get some good feedback from them.
Okay. I'm just wondering then if maybe the correct thing is going to be to kind of relook at this wording on that recommendation and make sure it fits with what we want to put forward. So Jason, when would be the drop dead time on when we print this?
So just looking at the timeline, Mr. Chair will likely present the 24th or 25th of September as a draft, right? So it's just a draft report. I would expect we'll probably want your final report, for the legislature and the governor sometime mid-December. This is just a draft. Again, it won't have all the current 24 financial information. I just looked at the recommendation aid. It's a run-on sentence. So there's some things that need to be kind of tweaked a little bit, but it is a draft. And so we'll probably provide the draft report to EQC by the 10th of September for their 24th date, should it be that day. So, sometime late next week would be the ideal, this is kind of what we want for draft language, to help me put that in there to get back across over to them and to you all.
Okay, so in that regard, the 10th, so Rich, is it fair or reasonable to see what you can have by the 4th or 5th?
Yes, I do think that is. I said I'm just gonna have to make a concerted effort to catch them. Like I said, I sent an email and then also I just don't know what their schedules are or whatever, but I could certainly, I'd at least be able to let Jason or what I've heard back from them. And because I don't think that the recommendation is too I guess, succinct right now. I think it's a general feeling that we have that there is a lack of knowledge. We all know that. So I think this is just one of those industries that could be doing more for us. And so as it reads, it doesn't even sound bad where it reads. I just wanted to, after Jace or you mentioned to me, Ed, about it, and actually Dale had called me, I said I made some phone calls right away. I got voice messages, then I sent an email. So I need to just hear something back from them and get some idea that might help us change the wording if we even need to going forward. But yes, Jason, I can have that by net. We got I think what's Monday's Labor Day, right? That's the second or third, but the fourth is like Wednesday or Thursday. I would have something to you guys by then.
That would be great, Rich. Appreciate that.
Perfect.
Donna, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Rich that even the wording we have now is clear enough. I believe this is such an important topic and helping to inform others and moving it forward. Even if Rich does not have the opportunity to, he has no control over contacting others and their time. I think moving forward, if we want to tweak the language a little bit, we could, but if Rich doesn't have that, I would personally like to see it move forward and we can fine tune it by December.
Yeah. Thank you, Donna. Any other further comments on this subject? Seeing none. So we're going to go ahead and see if Rich is able to get any more information on that. And then, as both Donna and Rich said, and all of you have indicated in the past, we're going to go ahead and continue to leave this recommendation up, potentially with a few comments added or changed within that recommendation. Okay. All right. Again, Rich, I really appreciate you doing that. I know you got just a ton of stuff going on. I appreciate Dale contacting you the last few weeks about it again, and you two working together to address it again. It's very appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, well, I'll get on that more and you have something to Jason, you guys by next week.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then we're gonna, what is it? 10 o'clock either. We take a quick break. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break? So we'll come back at 10:05, and then we're gonna come back on recommendation number 2 on page 4. All right. So 10:05. Thank you.
All right, should be live. Ray, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ringing the bell. See if everybody's there. So what has 5 toes and isn't your foot? Let's see. Dale should know that one.
You got me stumped.
Nobody? All right, my foot. Sorry. One of you once said you were going to come up with something better. I think it was Drew, and that has not happened. So till then, that's what you get. All right. Okay, Paul.
You hear about that kidnapping in Belgrade?
No, Paul.
He woke up.
It's the same kidnapping in Helena.
Same kid.
Same kid. All right. Back at it. So we are on recommendation 2. And so to refresh, to support the department request for funding the growth of the PALA program. So you can see the rationale there. And we knew this was coming with the growth of the program. And as we go forward into the 3, 5, and 10-year agreements that are out there, it will max out the current appropriation. I think that's the correct status. Does anybody have any other questions, concerns, or comments in regard to that recommendation? And that's simply requesting or indicating PLPW's support of the department's request for that appropriation for the next biennium. Any questions, concerns, comment? Seeing none, we'll leave that as it stands. Okay, recommendation number 3 was our recommendation to the department to focus efforts on increasing the utilization of the public access land agreement, PALA program, in a proactive and cooperative manner with landowners where public land is checkerboarded or corner locked. Our rationale was acknowledge that access staff resources are limited. Many tools in the toolbox, there's a typo to address many of the access issues facing Montana. Members believe the PALA program and other access programs are underutilized. The PLPW recommends the department make a dedicated effort to focus on using PALA to improve access to checkerboarded or corner locked land, public lands, as a way to address potential access conflicts before they arise. Rich.
Just to comment on all this, because I think, the PALAs are the way to get people on public lands, which is all good. And I'm probably overstating the obvious, but I think from a landowner standpoint, again, and it says it there, it's that you can push all the stuff that you want and open all this access and do those things. But when there's no management of it, when we're doing the same thing, we're opening more and more acres of land with less and less help to really manage it. That's the challenge that we have. And I just think it needs to be a focus that giving more money and opening more land is the obvious easy thing, but it seems like there's not a lot of support for for the departments to be able to manage it, because that's kind of where, speaking as a landowner, that those are the frustrations and the concerns that I have, is just being able to, things that you hear me say over and over again, is taking care of these lands. Because in the end, a lot of these lands that we're actually leasing these lands. Like, I mean, when we have state land, I'm the one responsible for taking care of it. I'm the one that pays for use of it every year. I'm responsible for the fences, the grass. If they come out and inspect my leases and I've done a bad job, I'm the one that's in trouble for it. So having cooperative relationships with BLM, DNRC, and FWP should be part of these increased pushes to act for more people to access public lands, because I think there's a management aspect of it that is not being considered. It's just opening things up.
Other comments?
But a quick question, Rich, just because I don't understand it fully from your perspective. Do you have an example of an easily accessible parcel of land that you lease where either the DNRC or the BLM have come down on you with some sort of fine or penalty? Like, can you walk me through that process? Or for like too
Yeah,
many weeks or something
I
like
have
that?
No, so you probably know it, Drew. So out south of the ranch here, I have a piece of state land that's been opened up to access because it accesses BLM land. And through that section there, as the roads in the fall when it's hunting season, my roads have now gotten exponentially wider. Every 2-track is now a 4, 6, or 8-track, but for people getting down there. I haven't been fined for that. I haven't been in trouble for that. They've recognized why it's happened, but I'm still the guy that uses the AUMs, takes care of the land, want to take care of it and look at it and have it be good. The other thing that I've noticed in some of these areas too is where I've now got knapweed springing up. And I know it's not from me because our ranch vehicles don't leave there, but I've got knapweed showing up in places where like people are parking for hunting access in those to state land or BLM land. And now I'm going out there and spraying those weeds, not because I have to, not because they're taking my leases away, but it's something that I feel as a landowner is my responsibility to take care of. And so and so every opportunity I get, I had, with the exception of FWP, I had BLM and DNRC together this summer out looking at these lands that we leased from them to show them the things that we're not only doing, but what I'm seeing out there again is that collaborative effort. And it's the first time I've had them out there all year. And I'm lucky to have them that they could come out. But that's my thing, is more and more acres of land, just like I'm sure Jason is aware. You look at, well, you know it, Drew, too, the region 6, you look at how many FWP law enforcement officers there are. I mean, we're expanding all these acres of access, but the same number of people patrolling them. And so I've been a constant proponent of, I don't think people have to be out enforcing law or busting people's chops, but it would be nice to see a BLM truck or a DNRC truck out occasionally throughout the year, just going and checking things out. But they're so understaffed that they can't do that. So I don't know if I've beat the horse to death or even answered your question, Drew, but that's what I'm talking about.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Katie. I saw you guys trying to unmute. Or Lee.
Is it me?
Yep, it's you.
Yeah, I agree with what Rich has to say, but I think that we have a kind of like out here, we don't have a lot of deeded land in one spot. And so what sometimes can happen is somebody can block access, like in the case of Whitmire Grazing Association, every one of those roads that went out through the game range went through a homestead. And Whitmire Grazing had theirs, and they've been signed up in block management since it started. And they've always offered access through there. And this was a way for them to be compensated because the grazing fees went up on the Fish and Wildlife Service stuff to try to get them to leave. This is just my opinion. But it's kind of incumbent upon us in our situation out here to be, we have a big block of state land, and the state has an access road through it, but it goes through deeded land in several places. And so you can either decide whether you want to use block management or something else, and most everybody's good. There's always somebody, must be far enough away from western Montana that the knapweed seeds don't get here. So anyway, I think it's incumbent upon us as land lessees, at least from the school kids in the state of Montana. We got a BLM land, we got a wilderness study area in the middle of our ranch. And most 99% of the people are good. And we just need to be, we can't, I think we can't, we've got a block management technicians are the ones that they're scared of. They're scared of Katie. And because the fish and game guys can come take their license away. And it's way better. I think, but I agree with what Rich is saying, but I don't know how being a tenant on somebody else's land, you have to kind of play by the rules and allow people to go there. And they're the guys that come put the fires out. The hunters are the guys that are in the volunteer fire department. Yesterday afternoon, I was coming down the Old Pine Road. There was a fire there. I got out there and didn't have a shovel. And so I'm trying to keep the thing from getting away. In 10 minutes, there was a fire truck there. The two guys took off their job and came and put the fire out. And I think it's kind of all goes together. Thanks, I'll shut.
Must be building boxes in the Glasgow Quonset today.
We're under construction today. Sorry.
All good. Thank you. We're getting some similar. So.
I thought you had like a horsefly buzzing around the microphone. Somebody had their hand up and pulled it. I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. So to your comment, Rich, to me, how do you get that working cooperation amongst all the public agencies involved with the varied lands that you're working with? And I think maybe we could mention that more specific either in recommendation 2 for the PALA program. It talks in the bottom paragraph or the second to last line, consider additional staffing and operations needed, so it could be just a comment in there recognizing that need, or in recommendation 7, where we're talking about, and that's our recommendation, maybe we should just add it to that as a more specific issue for more boots on the ground. So,
and so I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I see down number 7 now where it says enforcement staff and all that. I think it was just a general comment, and I do agree. I think maybe we could wordsmith it in there. I just think that BLM, DNRC, and FWP, having those resources out in the field somehow, guys. I think that's a part of this, that as we expand more acres for people to get on, that just being able to make sure that we're taking care of those lands. I don't know exactly how to wordsmith into that, but it looks like in 7 some of that is there too. So, yeah.
Okay, noted. I'm just going to put a note on the bottom of that one, Rich, to look at that wording and see if we can make that more clear. Some sort of synergy amongst those agencies in presence on the land. So.
Yeah, and not to drag it, because it is, so just example, one thing that happened last year is that we had some people building fire pits along the county road, and they were hunting on state land. And I think I brought this up maybe last year, if I apologize. But so I went and I said, guys, you can't do this. There's no open flames, on the state lands here. And so I called. So I left, and then I came back about 2 hours later, about 10 o'clock at night, and they had basically just relit the fire after I did that. So I went by, I didn't even stop. I just took a picture and I sent it to Andy Matekas, who's my FWP guy, because they were hunters there. But he said, Rich, I can't, that's not my jurisdiction, or that's not something that I handle. And so I'm like, okay, so that's the type of examples. Like, I'm like, we're all kind of working together. I didn't follow any further with Andy. I just told him about it. He said, we'll certainly keep an eye. But it's almost more like a collaborative effort. If it's not even more staff necessarily, it's just agencies working together for the betterment of everything that's out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so from my understanding, then recommendation, we're going to continue with that recommendation going forward. And if I'm wrong, somebody raise their hand or speak up. Okay, so moving on to page 5, recommendation number 4 was from us to the department to undertake a process to review all programs side by side, develop one access program with one menu of options for all private land hunting, fishing access programs in order to create efficiencies for staff and reduce complexity for landowners and hunters, anglers. Any further comment, concern, or question in that regard? Seeing none or hearing none, we'll go on to recommendation 5. So this recommendation was to ask the department to set and update and publicly publish a timeline for implementation of the future development phases of the My FWP phone app. Do we need to read through the detail of that? So probably should. So the rationale was PLPW members acknowledge the department struggles to maintain technological advances for a variety of reasons, believes the department should increase the use of technology across the My FWP app by setting and publicly posting timelines. Members believe the department needs to use the app to enhance and improve communication with hunters, enhance harvest and survey capabilities, and enhance availability specifically to access rules. One example could be to set a date to incorporate a digital sign-in for block management areas in the app. Rather than hunters trying to complete a coupon in the dark, failing to return the harvest and portion of their BMA coupon stub, and staff taking hours to drive to sign-in boxes and spend hours combing through and counting coupons, the department should set and publicly publish a timeline to incorporate digital sign-in for BMAs in the My FWP phone app. The digital sign-in should also be tied to an integrated data management system to reduce staff time and create staff efficiencies. The PLPW recommends the department be more directly accountable to the public and ensure that technological advances can be more readily utilized to reduce overall department costs and improve communication with hunters and anglers. Okay. Dale?
I guess my first question I have is, this focuses on the My FWP phone app. Is that the mechanism, or is that the only mechanism Fish, Wildlife, and Parks would use for making online reservations for some of the other things that are mentioned in this narrative? Or do we need to be more general and talk about phone/computer apps and not just focus on the My Fish, Wildlife, and Parks app? It may seem minor, but it may not be as minor as I think either. I guess I'd like to hear from Jason or someone else from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and get their thoughts on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide a little bit of context, but really this is, again, I'm going back to your guys' recommendation. For right now, one of our plans obviously is to pilot block management reservations for this fall. And so you guys have all kind of been briefed so far on that process. And then actually, just today, right now, we're actually in the process of front loading reservations we've gotten so far. And then starting tomorrow, there's going to be at least 3 properties that'll be online for reservations, and we'll continue to build that over the fall. What we're currently using is our online licensing system. So just the same way you go online to buy your hunting or fishing license or whatever you want to buy, you're actually able to make a block management reservation for those properties as well, starting tomorrow online. So that doesn't run through the app right now. I think, future goals would be to have it in one place, but right now it's going to run through our online licensing system. Not sure if that helps or not, but that's where we're at.
Other comments? Drew, do you have insight into those particulars?
Sorry, I had to find my mute button there. I do not. I don't have anything else to add there.
Okay. Anyone? So I think that's the tricky thing in this recommendation from my observation is, so getting online and using my FWP on a desktop or a laptop is one thing. Using it on a phone on an app is another. And I think that's why this really came forward is so many people are using a phone that to have them have there be a focus to have them both equal. I don't have my license on my phone. I bought a license and printed a license. But for those that do have it on their phone, they're not able to actually do this unless they go to a laptop or a desktop. Is that correct or no?
No, it runs through our online licensing system, so you're able to do it. It's just not as convenient as using it.
So you don't do it through the app, you do it through the web page.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the app currently does not sell licenses. It just stores your items held.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, probably to most of us, this is kind of muddy, I'm guessing. So I guess my question to you again, Jason, would be, is this a productive recommendation in trying to tie the two together, making a timeline instead of just saying it's coming? Because that's about setting a timeline for this, if you break it down to the core.
That's your guys' recommendation. I'll leave it to you if you decide that you want to make that more formalized, if you think this is more just of a statement rather than just a recommendation. I know Everett, I don't think he's on, but he's the one that kind of drove some of this. And then the last meeting, Cindy as well had some thoughts about where we're at with the access component of it. So I kind of tried to combine what I've heard thus far into more of a focused type recommendation, but happy to, so this is your guys' report, so happy to do with it whatever you would like to see done.
I think that's why that paragraph is so long. Yep. So I guess I'll ask that same question. So as we've put this forward, if anybody has an objection, please raise your hand or comment. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and I don't see the difference between a recommendation, which is just that, and a statement. I think it's fine if we want to leave it as a recommendation. So if you're good with going forward with that recommendation, great. And if you're not, please raise your hand or make a comment. Seeing no objection, we will go forward with that as a recommendation. Okay, recommendation 6 was from PLPW to the department to work with the Board of Public Education and OPI to seek a requirement for educational instruction for all students regarding the positive impacts on land stewardship conservation and Montana's hunting heritage derived from the agricultural community. The rationale, PLPW members acknowledge that the landscape and ownership of Montana is rapidly changing. Members would like to see each student be required to complete minimum coursework on the positive impacts provided from agricultural working lands, to include an emphasis on Montana's hunting heritage and land stewardship. Members believe that having this be required coursework will be beneficial to making all students more well-rounded and provide them with the basic knowledge the benefits of agricultural working lands provide to Montana and the world. So Dale had done some background work on this. So I'd like to get his comments. He had talked to Representative Logie in this regard, and maybe we could start with that report back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did visit with Representative Logie a week or so ago, and he had some real good ideas that he would like me to relay to this council. I think first off, he thought we really need to put the brakes on this until after the election. He said, we're going to have a new superintendent of public instruction after the November election. He thinks we'll get more traction with whoever gets elected. They'll be at the transition phase, but it doesn't mean there isn't work that we can do in the meantime. In addition, Representative Logie had talked with Wadad Cruzado, the president of MSU, to see if there was a marriage, and this was not something that has happened recently, that's happened in the past, to incorporate something or to have something like this in the school, and was there a role that MSU could play in that? And Representative Logie got positive feedback from MSU on that. Couple of things he suggested, though, were that he thinks we should wait till after the election and then sit down with the new incoming superintendent. So there's things that we could do to prepare for that. What is it that we want? Maybe talk and see who should our target audience be? Are we looking at fifth graders? Are we looking at high school students? Who are we looking at here that we want to focus this on? One thing that Representative Logie did say, and in the narrative, we talk about an emphasis on Montana's hunting heritage and land stewardship. He thinks this should be a part of it, but he thinks we need to be very careful that it's not focused on hunting heritage and land stewardship. That should be a part of it. It should be focused on agriculture and what's provided by agriculture, and this should certainly be a component of it, but the hunting heritage should not be a driver of it, or Representative Logie did not feel it will it'll go anywhere if the driver is our hunting heritage. So again, he suggested that we maybe get together and maybe put a committee together to talk about what it is we'd like to see. Another thing that came out after the discussion, my wife is a former teacher, and she said, well, how does this mesh with ag in our schools? And I don't have the answer for that, but that program was out there. I don't even know if it's functional, but this would be a question that we may want to raise with the incoming superintendent of public instruction. I think that's kind of a nutshell or a summary of what the congressman talked to me about.
Thank you, Dale. Discussion?
Maybe just add one more thing. I asked, or he asked me, or we visited about, he said, is PLPW the right avenue to push this? Because that's a discussion we had, I think, at our last meeting. And Congressman Logie said, if it's not PLPW, who is it? He doesn't see another group out there that's saying, hey, let us take this on. But he also said that this may be something we might cooperate with Farm Bureau or another entity to work through. So I had, looking back on my notes, I just saw that and I wanted to relay that. Thank you.
To clarify that last comment, Dale, did he think that was a good topic within PLPW as a body to pursue it?
I think the sense was that after we came up with what we want to see in this class and we talked with the new superintendent, that then maybe we look for some partners to be a part of this with.
Okay, thank you. Drew?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick thought here is that our list of recommendations feels a little long. And when I look at trying to be short and concise and impactful, maybe trimming some of these out, this might be one of those ones, again, that I would feel that is least impactful as far as making a recommendation. I wouldn't have any issues if this one went away for this session.
Okay, further comment?
I think Lee's got a comment.
Lee?
Sorry about that. We got some guys working on the building they're gonna tear down. And so anyway, I think the Fish, Wildlife and Parks already has, in the recent past, they did a book or a magazine that had all the working ranch stuff in it. I'm a print guy, but maybe there's a way to use the 8th grade Montana history class that I think everybody still does in the schools and take the material that's was already incorporated in the magazine and use that in some. It was concise and well done, and I thought it made a lot of sense to use that somehow into the program of the school system and incorporate it into the Montana history or something, so that we've already got all the things going on. I think that you need to put it in just another route to go the same way Dale was. But I think it might make sense.
Thank you, Lee. Does anybody know about that program officially? I mean, that booklet? From FWP? No?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, maybe we can look for that. So, additional comment?
Just to Lee's comment about that book, I think maybe what he's referring to is a recent edition of Montana Outdoors that had a bunch of different comments about traveling through Montana, and it had numerous articles on the agricultural industry as well as a lot of other things that for someone that wasn't familiar with it, it was pretty eye-opening on some of those things. And again, I'm just guessing, but that's what Lee was referring to. Thank you.
Yeah, I just got a note from Katie that that's in fact what he was talking about. So.
Yeah, and I think we noted that last time. I mean, that article, I think was, and if you read this most recent edition, I think they had a deluge of positive comments about how much people learned that they didn't know about ag in Montana. Yeah, it was really great. So maybe that is kind of a beginning. Rich?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Would you mind if I step back just a little bit? Because I stepped away. Mike Swan called me while we were in and I wanted to hear from him. May I address a little bit about what you had asked me before?
Sure. So this is
he just said
on realtors.
Yes, on the realtors. He said, and I thought it was very interesting, and I wasn't sure how I would say, but he said this is a huge need. Because he said the realtors only have a certain amount of time with potential buyers, and he said there's a huge lack of understanding. And because the web pages of say FWP, DNRC, there's so much information to look through when you go to those sites, that a 1 to 3 page something that could be added to the literature that the realtors hand out to people would be very, very beneficial. He also said, and I thought this was interesting, that in his world now, as more and more of the old time realtors are either stepping away or doing other things or retiring, the younger generation that are coming in and being realtors in the state have not come from ranches or farms and don't know anything about the DNRC rules, the BLM rules. Like, they're very uneducated in what even to be presenting to potential buyers of land in the state. And so I guess it was just, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but he very much said there would be a need and something they would use if it was in a simple 3-page, very short, brief, factual thing that realtors would use to add to their literature when they were talking to people potentially buying land. And he'd mentioned, I've never heard of it. I don't know about it. Dale might have heard it, or some of the others. There was something at one point called the Code of the West. And it was, I think, put out by a state agency. What he said, I don't know where this is or what, but he said something along those lines again would be useful. So if that's out there and I've just missed it completely, I don't know that, but that was a something that he had mentioned that he had seen at one point. So anyway, falling back to that, just saying that with only having one person I've talked to, it sounds like there sure could be a positive thing for this going forward.
All right, Rich, thank you very much for that. Stephanie.
I think I emailed that document that Rich was talking about out to everyone a couple months ago, like in June. I can look it up and resend it if need be.
Yeah, would you do that? I missed that.
Wow, Stephanie, that's how bad is that?
Yeah.
But maybe we can pull some stuff from it for the 3-page whatever. So Stephanie, I apologize if that's bad.
I think like 2 people responded and were like, "Oh, this is great," and then it's June. Everybody's busy and getting ready for summer, so I get it.
All right.
Well, okay. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I think if that is something we could look at again, but I do think it's a positive direction in what we're trying to put together. And it did sound like Mike would be very interested, and I'll find out from others, but I'm assuming, being as big as Mike is and what he does, if that's certainly a positive direction in that. So,
well, that'd be good news.
So you will leave that as a recommendation?
Yeah. So, Rich, do you want to come back as we previously decided by Wednesday with any additional feedback, and then incorporate what you just said and anything further on the 4th to Jason?
Yes, I'll tell you what, I'll send an email to you, Mr. Chairman, and Jason too, or whatever, with even my comments from what I got from Mike now, and just put it into something in an email that we can refer back to, and still do that. So whatever notes or whatever I can come up with, it'll help give some direction.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so back on page 5, number 7 on education. No, I'm sorry. Number 6. So, wrapping up what I was hearing, so possibly to not bring that recommendation forward and to flesh it out more fully in the coming year. Is that where I think we're going? Was there any additional feedback or input besides Rich and Drew in that regard, and Lee on the Outdoor Montana?
Mr. Chairman, are we talking about the education aspect or something else?
Yes, the education. Yep, recommendation 6.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I probably missed the conversation. I apologize. Is there talk about not wanting to bring this forward for a reason?
It wasn't not bringing it forward, but it was not potentially not bringing it forward in this report. So Dale had talked with Representative Logie, who actually had been kind of the impetus to this sometime back in our meetings about believing there was some potential traction for it going forward in education and legislation. So, Dale, you want to speak to that real briefly, just again?
Sure. In visiting with Representative Logie, he thought a better approach might be, or approach we might want to take, is to wait until after the election, visit with the new superintendent of public instruction, get that individual's input, and also for PLPW to spend some time thinking about what it is that we want to emphasize, so we have something more concrete to take forward. One thing Representative Logie said was, or stated, was that he doesn't think the emphasis should be on Montana's hunting heritage. He thinks it should be a part of it. He thinks the emphasis should be on Montana agriculture and how the hunting heritage is a part of that. He said if we start out and want to make hunting heritage the driver of this, he thinks it'll be a non-starter.
Questions on that, Rich?
Sorry, no, I thank you for the follow-up, Dale. Sorry.
That's all right. It's not a problem. Well, so I guess to kind of summarize this a little bit, I mean, again, this is a recommendation to have the department work with. It's not legislation. So we're well before creating legislation, and maybe, I mean, the first statement in there, if you're looking at recommendation number 6, is simply the department work with the Board of Public Education and OPI to seek a requirement for educational instruction for all students regarding the positive impacts on land stewardship, conservation, and Montana's hunting heritage derived from the agricultural community. So again, I would just ask, do we want to set this recommendation aside for a future emphasis, or go forward with it and we can change the terminology a bit to be more focused on the role of stewardship and conservation for that the ag community has had? Would that make it more effective or more clear? So let's have a little discussion on that, or do we want to move it forward to the next time?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rich.
Go ahead, Rich.
I would think you're going down the right way, Ed, that we maybe send it down the line a little bit, since there's already some kind of work being done. I think as I read through it a little bit too, I think my personal opinion is if we start kind of requiring, minimum coursework in certain areas of things for a specific thing, like whether it's ag or whatever, it feels like, what makes something else not, why are we not requiring mine safety, I'm just trying to think, why are we not requiring other things that happen in Montana as far as coursework? And then are we kind of doing the job of what the public education system should be doing? I mean, maybe the thing to look to is if there's something, is actually getting that opportunity to go meet with the board or whoever the head of public, and say, well, what are you seeing out there, or what are your teachers seeing? Because I think there is, maybe something there. I mean, Big Sandy schools, I mean, geez, they're that's all they talk about in their classes is kind of Montana heritage, because they're around it. They do grass things for day trips around Big Sandy. They do come out and look at cows giving birth. I mean, but they're in an area where that happens, where Bozeman, Billings, maybe those places, don't. So again, trying to understand how certain schools and what, I just think, I feel like the requiring of anything a little bit seems a little bit like maybe too one-sided. Even though I'm a huge supporter of ag and hunting and all that, I think it maybe should move down the line a little bit and we get our handle around it a little better.
Okay. So is Dale?
I guess I'm going to echo what Rich said. I just think we need to really put some more thought into this based on what I'm hearing, and not only from our council, but from Representative Logie. It just seems to me there's a lot of work we need to do, and that word requirement is concerning to me. I hadn't thought of the angle that Rich just presented, but I think that's a real fair question. And yeah, I put it in there as one of the things that we're looking at, or future concerns might be fine, but I think at this point to go forth as a recommendation, I don't think that's the direction we should head right now. Thank you.
Ray?
Yes, I definitely have to agree with that. To me, it is great to have it in the schools and everything, but I look at it. I'm not sure that PLPW is the right driver for it. You know, I think it would be great to have it in the schools, and if to have like Rich was saying with Big Sandy, some of the schools over here used to have the outdoor programs and that, which they don't anymore. But I just don't think this is something that should go forward with our recommendation.
All right. Any other comment? Donna?
I agree with what's been discussed, and that we should just put that aside for right now and move forward, but keep it in the back of our minds as well.
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that? If you disagree with removing this recommendation from this year's report, this biennial report, if you disagree with that, would you please raise your hand? Raise your hand still up. Raise your hand or comment to that effect. I don't see that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to remove recommendation number 6 from this report. And I think, just to wrap up my thought on it, Dale, you brought up the question, what's already out there in education. I think maybe what we could do is move this to future concerns that we can mention, and word it such that, like Rich with Big Sandy doing a program like that, and probably many rural schools do that. And the interesting thing, they already know it. And I think when you get to urban areas, and let's just say Helena, that's probably where we'll lose sight of the contribution of ag to the whole landscape of Montana. So maybe we just move that forward to a future concern for future discussion, if everybody's good with that. Because we all brought this because of that commentary we've all had about how does agriculture play in wildlife management, and clearly we all know that it's the significant player and always has been. So if everybody's good with that, we will remove it from the recommendation in this report and on to a future concern. Okay. All right, so the next item is recommendation 7. And this recommendation was that the department seek additional FWP access and enforcement staff, wardens, to account for the increase of recreation on private and public lands and improve harvest and game redistribution in order to improve landowner and hunter angler experience and better meet wildlife management goals. PLPW rationale. Members acknowledge that there's been an increase of recreation on private and public lands in Montana over the past 5 years. Members would like to see the department focus on securing additional access and enforcement, full-time equivalent staff to improve hunter management and enforcement compliance. In discussions with landowners, including those not participating in any FWP programs, it's been clear that there's a need for more FTE to better assist in managing the public and the resource to improve reaching management goals. One example could also be to have the staff resources to hire local ranch managers to facilitate public hunters and increase harvest on enrolled lands. Landowners frequently communicate the need for more enforcement staff presence and are the most knowledgeable of their lands and the presence of game. PLPW recommends the department seek additional access enforcement FTE to improve customer service, increase access program participation, and increase enforcement presence to improve ability to meet management objectives. And I might add, this is where Rich was talking about collaborative presence amongst agencies. This is directed at FWP, but maybe that would be part of that. So this is noted as legislation required. So maybe we could start with clarifying that part, legislation required. And maybe Jason could help us understand that.
Right. So it's kind of going back to what Deb said last meeting where, the legislature approves our budget and our budget ask. And so that's where it would be an element that, we just can't add positions. We just can't make up positions and hire people. We need that legislative body approval of our entire budget. So, and that budget is presented from the department through the director or through the director, through the governor. So the governor will have his budget coming. That's presented then, of course, to the legislature. But that's why it's a legislative body. And I don't know if Deb has any more to add to that, but.
Yeah, and thanks, Jason. I think I mentioned the last meeting too that, while we could use FTE everywhere, I mean, from ComEd to tech services to accounting, obviously enforcement and access too, our ask has to be reasonable to the legislature, to the governor and the legislature. We can't ask for everything we need every session. This year we are going to be asking for a fair amount of FTE, more than we have in the past, I think. But, personally, and I mentioned this last time, and I talked to the chair about this a little bit, is I really do think what we ask of you as a body is to support what our ask will be. We do need enforcement, we do need access staff, but there's a lot more things to just a simple ask of FTE in these two areas. And I just would hope that you would support what our ask would be. It may or may not be here, but if we ask here, we would be competing with other potential needs as well. So I just suggest that to the group, that you just support what our ask is to the governor and support the governor's budget when it goes forward.
Thanks, Deb. I see Rich has a question.
Yeah, actually, it's just a comment. If I understand that very well, Deb, and so maybe it's not that we support your ask or whatever, which is fine. But again, maybe it's not more people necessarily or whatever you guys get, because I realize that, but maybe more of a directive from us as our group to communicate and share the resources where there's, I don't know, I guess Jason, maybe you can, I don't know how much the crews, say Region 6, are communicating with Lewistown DNRC or Hill County BLM offices, or that they're, hey, I'm going out to this part of the country tomorrow. You want to go along, or hey, or not only that, or I can cover this for you. If I see this, I'll collaborate back with you. Do you feel like enough of that is going on, Jason, or could that be better?
I can only speak to the access side of it, Rich. I'd have to defer to one of our enforcement, potentially Chief Howell. I can get him in contact with the group. I can't speak to. I'm sure it's nuanced, right? So every situation is different. Every personnel can be different, but I'm sure they're collaborating, and I'm almost certain that they'd be collaborating. To what extent, I can't answer that.
Follow up, Rich, are you good? Paul?
I was just curious. I didn't really understand what they were asking. Does the department want to hold off on asking for more wardens and staff, or are they in favor of asking for more wardens and staff? Because I think it's highly important that we need some more wardens and stuff on the ground. I mean, we just don't have enough of them. And I think that would help landowner relations a great deal. But I didn't know where the department stood on it.
So thanks, Paul. We're always in favor of asking for more staff where we need it. We have sent our requests across to the Capitol, to the Office of Budget, and to the Budget Director. And so it's there right now. It hasn't been transferred to the governor yet. And so I'm not able to speak to what's in that yet. We will support the governor's budget when it does come out. We do ask for additional FTE every year. And like I said, we are supportive of that where we have identified our needs. And like I said, it might be, enforcement, it could be technology services, it could be ComEd. There's a variety of places where we have identified where we need additional FTE. And all that I would ask of the group is to support our ask. I mean, I think that's really, really important. I can't really share with you what it is yet because it's not final. But when it does come out, just know that we took a real good look at this and we prioritized the way we thought we should. And so I would just ask the group, I'm not saying don't do this, but I would ask the group to support our ask rather than, and I'm not suggesting you're doing this, but rather than going directly to the legislature and asking for something we might not be able to support.
So Deb, in regards to when that will be released, what would you expect there?
Generally, it's in October. It's right before the election.
Okay.
And I guess basically the easiest way for me to say this is I would love it for you guys to work with us on our ask, rather than just going down a separate route.
Okay. Paul, did you have another comment?
Well, I suggest that we follow Deb's recommendation there. We pull this off of our legislative agenda and just support the department.
Other comments? Let's see. So this is a big one, no doubt. And quite frankly, I don't remember that we ended up with an actual recommendation for a certain number of FTEs or anything in that regard. Just the note that it's the constant 100-pound gorilla on the landscape. and I think it's obvious, I don't recall us coming to a point where he said we're going to try to create legislation for this specifically from PLPW. I don't even know how we would do that actually in regards to a budget question. So to me, it's a matter of recommendation or concern rather than a legislative request from us. So Dale, you have a comment?
Well, I do. And I guess I had two comments, and that was one of them. It's like, it just seems to me that we recognize that there is a need for more enforcement out there. That's been a message we've heard from almost the entire council for several years. I don't like the fact that we have legislation required, like you were just kind of alluding to, Mr. Chairman, and for that reason, I'd like to potentially reword this and definitely get the part out of legislation required. The other thing, and if we change this will likely change as well. But when we talk or look at the bolded part of this, and on the second line where it says and improve harvest and game redistribution in order to improve landowner and hunter angler experience, I think we would be wise to delete the and game redistribution. I just think that sends a poor message. I think by improving harvest, that will happen, and having people out there, game will be redistributed, but it almost sounds like our goal is to have people out there to herd the animals where people can shoot them, and I just don't think it has a very good smell test to it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dale. Other comments? So to restate, I think where we're at. So yeah, and I don't recall this being legislation we wanted to create and move forward through PLPW. So to restate this as a directive or comment, recognizing the need that's always on the ground for collaborative work. Somehow that's a big reshaping of this verbiage and terminology. But so what I'm hearing is we remove this as an official recommendation as it stands, and create a comment just as a recommendation to take that into account, and then or we drop that as a whole and wait for the budget to see how that is and how we can support that, or if we have any comment on it at that time. How's that for a confused commentary to wrap it up? Dale?
So would this come out as a recommendation at all then, Mr. Chairman, or would it come out as maybe go into the future concerns list? I'm confused on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and so am I. No, I think if we can reshape just a statement, I was looking at and hopefully we'll have a little time to go through the rest of this report, but on one page it talks about the block management program highlights, and it's kind of mentioning the success in numbers. One thing that I noted when I look back at other notes, in 1999, there were 247,784 hunter days accounted on block management. In 2016, there were 426,399 hunter days. And in 24, there were 658,252 hunter days. So obviously, that creates a greater need for interaction between agencies and all these access opportunities. Maybe we can reform a statement within this program highlight to note that as a concern to always be in the top of our minds. You know, even Pala, the access increase there in terms of acres, we don't have numbers to say it went from this many 100 days to this many 100 days unless they're tied to a block management. But I mean, that's definitely a significant increase in 100-day use and how it all interacts between private and public lands that are accessible in the programs. So I guess I feel like we need to make a comment in that regard, and maybe it would be better under future concerns or within the report itself rather than a legislative recommendation. So does that sound clearer, Dale?
It does. I think it's of strong enough interest to many of the people on this council that we should leave it in as a recommendation. I just don't think we want to strike the part that talks about legislation required. And then, as you stated, Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be wise to revise that explanation portion of it.
So maybe if we leave it in as a recommendation, the department consider the need in its budgeting. How about that for we could rework that a little for the department to consider within its budgeting process the need for collaborative work amongst agencies and presence on the ground amongst public and private access agreements, something to that effect as a recommendation. How does that sound? Dale?
I think it's fine. If you would like, I'll take a stab at it and get something back to you by the end of the day.
Okay. That'd be excellent. All right. Any additional comment? So we're gonna, at this point, we definitely do not want to make this as a legislative recommendation, and taking into consideration the fact that budget is coming, and obviously we want to see that. So then to reword this terminology as a recommendation, and then we can all approve that once we have that done, and we'll again set this as a by next Wednesday. But we can, Dale, if you can do it, I can probably get on it a little too this afternoon. So any other comment? Okay, so seeing none, if you object to removing this as a legislative requirement and turning it into a pure recommendation just to the department for considering the need, and then we'll complete that wording. If you object to that, please raise your hand or comment. Donna? You're muted. There you go.
About that, yeah. You know, I think I agree with Dale on this, but it's also important that we show our support to the department and on the recommendation that Dale's going to take a stab at. If we somehow implemented words that we support the department in adding additional staff are. What about the current staff? Is there a better way to get them more funding for what they're doing on the ground and supporting current and additional staff?
I'd have to defer to the department on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. It would be really the same. You know, when we put forward our budget, we're very, very thoughtful in how we put this forward. And of course, you know, we have more than one letterhead division. It's not just Parks and Outdoor Rec, but the Access program. So we're very thoughtful about that. And we would just ask again that when our budget comes out, which will be part of the governor's budget, that this group, maybe as a whole, us individuals, comes out and support. You know, testimony at legislative committees really speaks volumes when a committee such as this or individuals support it. So that's the best way you could help us with putting our budget forward and getting the additional resources we need.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Any others? Okay, so we will rework this recommendation to be purely a recommendation to the department in its budget process to consider these concerns that we brought forward. We'll word that into it so it's clear, and then we'll get that back to all of you again by the middle of next week, so Wednesday the 4th. Okay. All right, any further discussion on that one? Okay, seeing none. Moving to 8, we already did that with Rich, so we're set there. So let's take a look at the Access Program overview. So that starts on page 7. And if you have any comments on page 7, please raise your hand and we'll discuss that. So page 7. Donna, your hand's still up. Did you have a comment on that one, Donna? Nope. Okay. Okay, so page 8, Block Management Program Overview. Any particular comments on page 8? And the reason why we're going through this is our report. So if you have anything in here you're not in concurrence with, that would be great to hear right now. Okay, nothing on page 8. How about page 9? Any comments on page 9? Seeing none. I know you can't read through these, but I'm trusting that you've read through them. Page 10, statistics on block. Go on to page 11. Any comments there? I have one that I'll give to Jason, and it's just a technical thing. Page 12, FWP Hunting Access Program Funding Sources, page 12. Any comments or input on that page? Seeing or hearing none. Okay, so one of Paul. Sorry about that, page 12. Paul, you're muted.
So this is the funding sources, right?
Yes.
Which programs? Is it all of them or?
Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, this is where FWP gets funding for the access programs. Yep. And this is for essentially for the legislature and folks to understand how the program's funded generally.
I don't see anything on there about the outfitter preference points. And that's a question I sent to you, Ed.
Yeah, it's on there.
Where at?
It's the 6th bullet from the bottom. Portions of funds received for non-resident purchasing a second preference point when hunting with an outfitter.
Okay, all right. I guess the question I had earlier was, how is that money being spent? I mean, we got quite a bit of it, raised, and that's one thing I asked Ed earlier was to explain that. If we could get an accounting for that to see where the department has used that money for those 4 programs. And I don't know if this is the time to talk about that or if there's another time to do it.
Yeah, I think for a specific breakdown, you do want to break down on every one of these how the department has spent each segment of the funding. I mean, that only came into play in let's see, this is 24, so the beginning of 23?
No, 2022, it's 3 years now. And they
Well,
2022,
it was passed in 21.
24, yeah. So we've raised $2.222 million for those 4 programs. And that breaks out $555,550 per access. There's 4 access programs that money's supposed to go to. And I wanted to know if they've been using it for that. I mean, even the PALA money coming in, I mean, that's quite a bit of money.
So I believe that was in the, let's see, is that broke down in here or is it total?
We'll get you some more as a committee as the numbers are finalized for fiscal year 24. But in a sense, in talking with our chief financial officer, Lena, yesterday, Paul, two things happening. One is we need the authority. So we didn't know at the time in the 23 session how much would be available in that account. And then the authority granted by the legislature to spend those funds. And then also we didn't want to spend down that account to zero or nothing without some kind of a steady projections on where that account is going. So now we have a period of time where we've collected those funds. And so we kind of have an estimated idea of where those funds will be at going forward. So you'll see in the 25 ask to utilize those dedicated funds from this outfitter point, and then looking at not building the programs on unsustainable funding. So expecting that continues in that pattern was kind of what she had relayed to me. So we'll get you the financial breakdowns. Yep.
So basically, we have had the authorization to spend that money, or have we? Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, and we also need the checking account to grow big enough that we can actually utilize those funds for a purpose.
I was just wondering how they were going to do it because there's quite a buildup in there. So, thank you.
Yep, and like I said, I'll get the final numbers to the committee once that's available. I don't know what her timeline is. They just wrapped up the fiscal year end, and then if you have more specific questions, of course, we'll redirect you to those guys.
Okay, any other questions or comments on page 12? Dale?
Sorry about this, but I want to back up to page 8 for just a minute. And this is just an editorial comment. Where it talks about type 1 BMAs, it says this includes BMAs that use sign-in boxes shown to the right. And there's not a picture of a sign-in box to the right or whatever. Again, just an editorial thing. Sorry about that. I made a note of it and skipped by it.
Actually, if you zoom in on that picture in the upper right, no, just kidding.
Good point. I just switched the picture. I failed to change the text.
Thanks, Dale.
Yep.
Okay. So moving on to page 13. So this is one of the things we're definitely charged with, is making sure that the access programs are funded. And so this page shows your general breakdown on the access program. You know, we talked in the past few meetings in regards to this, you know, what's the status of the funding? And this breaks this down for review for the legislature and the governor. Any comments on page 13? Hearing none. Page 14. Any comments there? I had one question in regards to 23 comparison on the right versus 24. Probably going to get a question on why a decrease in the number of acres in 24 compared to 23. There's 71 palas instead of 62, so the number of palas increased by 9, and the opened acres decreased by 80,000, 90,000. Just we're going to get a question on that.
I'll have to look and see which projects were in that came out.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, Dale?
I've mentioned this before. I think it would be helpful here when we start talking about PALAs and it talks about 2023 and 2024, that we also have a mention in there that, X number of PALAs and X number of acres are also enrolled in the block management program. Just provides transparency.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on 14?
Dale, are you looking, I think I understand what you're saying is the public land inside the boundary of a BMA that may also be accessible through a PALA. Is that?
That is correct, yes.
Is that, the PALA stuff would be separate from, but I understand what you're saying, so.
Yep, but you understand the gist of it, Jason, thanks.
Okay. Page 15. Any comments? Okay. See, Paul.
I had a question. Is there anywhere in this report where you talk about the 618,000 acres that's open by block management? I don't know if we're there yet, or is that in this report?
Can you clarify that?
You can clarify.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Jason?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. You're talking about the landlocked public lands or the inaccessible public acres opened
Right.
by block management.
Right.
So that number is not here. I think I could add it to like page 11 per se, where we had oh yeah, there it is. So 618,000, page 11 in 2023. So it's a little bit hard because that analysis comes through an ONX report. That's not actually an FWP generated number. That's a one that ONX Maps did in 2021, but still holds true. So, but it is there.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's huge. I really do. And I think that, that's just a good thing to get out there that this is working to open up some landlocked properties that we always hear so much about.
Okay. And page 15, any other comments on page 15? Seeing none. Page 16. See none. Page 17. Seeing none. And page 18. So that the last two are on the fishing PLFA program. Okay. So that is the main report. And then as Jason mentioned, the 2023 EHA program evaluation report is attached to that. And he had the question, do we want to include that in that report or not? Anybody have any comment in that regard? I guess my only comment is I'd actually like them to see what it takes to evaluate that program in time and numbers. So I would encourage we leave it in there. Paul?
Does that report on the 454, does that give you the number of, I was looking for that number of public hunters that got to hunt and their success? Or am I just seeing that? Am I missing that somewhere?
No, it's in there by each program. So every as I read it, every agreement has those stats listed within that whole report. And I think there's a summary in the end, if I recall.
Yeah, I guess maybe I didn't read far enough or in depth enough.
I chose percentages by hunters on both bulls and cows, and how many extra hunters and such were on there. Harvest percents.
What percent? Is that on pages?
It's on various.
So if you're looking at the report right now that we're talking through and going through, Paul, it's actually page like 24, 25 would be, question 1 for the landowner. Did you allow any free public access between archery and the end of general rifle? And there was 677 additional hunters reported by landowners. And then, how many properties allowed what? Same with satisfaction.
Okay, I see. It's just more broke out than.
Yeah. And then
page 39, Paul has all of the stats on how many on the harvest as well. I think that's what you're looking for as well.
Yeah. Okay. I'll look at that then. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay. So we're a couple minutes past public comment. So let's see what we've got there. Jaden, do you have anybody available for public comment?
Mr. Chair, at this time, we have no one online to make public comment.
Must have scared them all away. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Jaden. So wrapping up that report and where we're at. So I've got some homework noted. I probably got to catch up a couple of those. And that is on the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program for all of you to review those questions and send any suggestions to Jason. And if you can, to rewatch the video a second time and send any comments or suggestions in that regard. And then for Drew, Stephanie, Paul, and myself, the bonus point question. So we need to figure out how to get together on that and have something back by next Wednesday. And then Rich was gonna get something back to us on the realtor question, also by next Wednesday. And there's one more that I didn't write on this list.
Dale, edits to the staffing.
Yep, Dale edits to the last recommendation that we're not going to put legislation forward on. I believe 8. Staffing. So, and that'll be later today. Other Other things I might have missed there or other comments? And our next subject will be your home reports, and we might talk briefly about a meeting. Dale?
Just a real quick question for Jason. This report to the legislators, will it be hard copied or will it be an emailed copy? Any changes? I know in the past it's been a hard copy, and is that the same format? And then if that is the case, well, either way, once the report's finalized, is that something that will be coming out to us? And I guess it wouldn't be until later in the year. Is that correct?
Right, so this report is to the 2025 legislative session as well as the governor, starting in January, more or less. What we're providing now is kind of a draft to get in advance of that with EQC, the Environmental Quality Council, and their September meeting. So yeah, you guys will have a formalized final version probably around the first part of December, I would expect. I'm not sure the date yet when all of our other department reports go over, but typically that's kind of when we send it, is with the other legislative required reports.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none. So let's go through home reports, and I would start with Ray. You're muted, Ray. Still muted.
No.
You keep trying, and I'll go to Drew. And
perhaps Jane could ask you to unmute since she's the host, if that gives you a button.
Yeah, I'm clicking on it.
Okay, my mouse froze, so I'm kind of SOL. But,
okay, let's see if we can get Ray on there, but we'll go with Drew.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Lots of hype around the election, so all that stuff is front of mind for a lot of folks that I talk to in the field and in the area. I just want to thank everybody from the FWP staff real quick too. Obviously there's a pile of data in here, and it's really good and it's really detailed. So thank you guys for your efforts there. On that last point of the EHAs, it's actually one of the things that has come up a couple times recently with some folks around my area. We don't have any recommendations from this group to make any changes to the EHAs this year, but I've heard some chatter, maybe in the weeds, if you will, about there being changes internally to EHA being recommended to the legislature or internally at FWP. So I guess at this point it's all kind of just rumor, and I was wondering if there's anybody from the department that has any insight to any of that.
I don't know if Deb's available or not. We've talked about a few changes, for example, the methodology language that's in the statute as far as how a landowner would select somebody. We've struggled with that. At times we said first-time hunters or veterans or local residents, but we can't really tease a lot of that out. So there's those kinds of minor changes, but programmatically, there's not been any discussion on large-scale changes per se.
That's all I had.
That answer your question, Drew? We can get you more. I mean,
it confirms that it's not just a bunch of rumors, that there is some substance there. So when that gets closer to being whatever it's going to be, I'd love to know what those details are. Thank you.
Okay. Donna.
Thank you, Chair. Not a whole lot. on my front right now. Hunting season's approaching. We're in antelope hunting, archery, but been pretty quiet. I think we've been more concentrated on the fishing world right now than the hunting and the access programs. I've been going to the Ruby Valley Strategic Alliance. We're working on wildlife predator conflicts, and I don't really have much to report on that, but I will keep you updated. But I would also like to thank, I mean, this packet has a lot of good information. The department took all our suggestions and condensed them and made them in a very good readable format that we can present as recommendations. So just to express my thanks and gratitude for the hard work of all involved.
Thank you, Donna. Eric?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not a lot to report. Just a little bit of excitement here with hunting season coming up, and then the excitement over some possible changes in our mule deer seasons. There's been a lot of discussion here in Region 6 and 7 about that. A lot of positive coming out of it. A lot of positive about the changes that have happened with no mule deer does being taken on public land anymore. There's been a lot of positive comment about that, and just some hope that we see some changes in the general season for mule deer. Other than that, not a lot.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Paul?
Yeah, not a lot going on, I guess. Getting ready for hunting season. Looks like I agree with Eric on the doe hunting for mule deer in 6 and 7. I think that'll help only on private ground. Other than that, I do hear occasionally from landowners still wishing that they could be somehow brought into the mix a little better. And I want to thank the Fish and Game for all Jason and all the crew there about all the information they put out. It's pretty informational and helpful, and it takes a lot of time. And I just want to say thank you to that.
Thanks, Paul. Stephanie?
It's going good. I think we got a few more antelope rifle permits this year. Our numbers around Region 4 were looking pretty good for antelope numbers. Slight increase, still down, but slight increase. We've been seeing, a lot of archers out there having some success. Bird season opens this weekend, so we're starting to see some folks come into our area, getting ready for that opener. I think everybody that I've talked to has been really, really welcoming of the mule deer changes, the reduced doe tags and some of the changes among the regions or the districts, making some of the districts draw only or draw for the rut. I have heard some folks who have been out in the break, some friends of mine and stuff, have been saying that there's a lot of non-residents and residents who are scouting, particularly 410, not aware of the changes in those districts 410 and 417. And so it might be something the department, kind of pushes out there like, hey, make sure you guys read the regs. There's been some big changes, especially in Region 4. Because a lot of folks are out there scouting for mule deer, not realizing that they needed a permit and they do not have one. So that's kind of all for Region 4.
Thanks, Stephanie. Rod?
Not a lot to report from up here, but we've avoided any major fires, knock on wood, which is a good thing. Kind of back to what Stephanie was saying, I got a call from a friend of mine in Miles City this morning. Kind of concerned about he thinks it's a great idea, the mule deer does only on private, but is concerned that a lot of people aren't going to know. Well, which I guess is a concern, but pleading ignorant doesn't get you out of doing something stupid. but I'm not so sure that the department somehow, and Moga can maybe help too, but make sure that's blasted out there so people are aware that there's no mule deer doe hunting on public, which kind of what Eric said and Paul, Stephanie, we got a lot of positive feedback on that. A lot of people think that's a great move, and yeah, hopefully we can get something done with the mule deer seasons moving forward and get them out of the rut and go from there. But anyway, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Rod. Mr. Cornwell.
They shut the chainsaw off, so we're good here. But we're really good. We got lots of grasshoppers, so the birds are doing good. And the deer went back to Canada. So we got our water supply failed on the 17th of June. So before the fall is over, we'll be able to walk across the Milk River without using the bridge. And you can probably go catfishing with a dip net. But everybody's doing good. We got more, the crops are better and everything's good. I think the deer had there was a good recruitment in the deer. We had a nice open winter. So we've got lots of young ones coming up. I did have one of my constituents say that he's my age and he's been a lifelong hunter, and he went out on the east side of the Ridge Road bow hunting last year, and he was convinced that the outfitters from south of Malta had gone over there and shot all the lead cows and then chased all the elk over on them toward the Bear Paws and the Little Rockies. So everything's good here. I think it just takes a long time. There's a long lag time between the game counts and the season setting and all that stuff, and they go up and down. So we're looking for a better year next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Mr. Tribby.
Well, out here right now, the fires are the big issue in the southern part of the region. The Remington fire's been on the news. It's burned about 200,000 acres, and I looked at Onyx today and just got a better sense of that. The north part of that is dominated by Forest Service land. As you move south, you get onto more private lands. It's going to have an impact. It's going to redistribute the elk and the deer down there. And of course, that area gets hit very hard by archers, and I suspect that those elk, again, in the short term anyway, are going to be redistributed, and it's just going to put more pressure on other parts of the public land. It's always a concern this time of the year with people closing their places because of fire danger, but I did reach out to Region 7 this morning and ask them, and I think so far they've only had 2 of their cooperators that are going to delay the start of their hunting season due to fire danger, so that's a positive. We did receive at our house 1.25 inches rain this week, and I know Bernie, which is kind of right down in the heart of the Remington fire, they got about 1.5 inches, and I see as of yesterday it was only 5% contained, but they also didn't have very much growth on it. So hopefully that fire will be out soon enough, and it was not going to impact at least people's travel. Bird season starts Sunday. Reports are pretty good. I did talk with a friend of mine that is from the northeast part of the state, and he said they've seen far fewer people out training bird dogs up in the northeastern part of the state, and there were some rules put in place after the last legislature, and the sense I'm getting it's the results are what they were hoping for. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dale. Were we able to get Ray back on there? I see thumbs up, so Ray's happy. We've been enjoying looking at you, Ray. Appreciate all your effort there, trying to get that going. Drew had a question. Maybe Deb can respond to that a little more in regards to the EHA question on choosing public hunters.
So I didn't I don't know what the exact question was. I can speak to the legislation that we're drafting, but was there a specific question?
Okay,
Well,
Drew.
yeah, thanks, Deb. The question was just around, I had heard that there were some changes brewing, and it was something that we hadn't thought to make any recommendations on for this year. So I was wondering what the department had in mind.
Sure. So thanks. I'll talk to you about a couple of the changes in the legislation that we are clarifying. It's not a real big change, but we're just clarifying in the existing statute. Again, this isn't approved, at the governor's level yet or not. This is just legislation that we've been talking about here. So the changes would be you remember we talked about that at least one of the public hunters must hold the equivalent license, permit, or combination as issued to the landowner. So we wanted to clarify language that it's at least one of the department selected public hunters, not just public hunters. So that would be one of the changes that we would make, perhaps. And then the other two are again just cleanup. We had in the statute that the agreement with the landowner is that it must include a process or methodology the landowner may use to select up to 1/3 of the public hunters. The problem with that is we didn't really specify what the process or methodology would do. And a lot of the landowners wanted to pick a veteran or a youth, and we don't have the ability to really screen those out. So when they told us that's the process they wanted to use, is to be able to pick a veteran hunter, we didn't have the capability of doing that. So we're just striking that language. Instead of saying the agreement must include a process or methodology, it just says the agreement must reserve the right of the landowner and blah, blah, blah. But we just strike that methodology or process because there's really nothing that they can develop that helps the situation. So that was just a cleanup there. And then the last one was we said that the commission, so our Fish and Wildlife Commission, shall prioritize approval of an application for a license permit or combination of the two based on the willingness of the landowner to allow additional hunting, cow harvest, during the regular hunting season or the shoulder hunting season. So that meant if a landowner allowed just one additional public hunter for cow harvest or 300, they were treated equally. So we wanted to clean up that language and just not say based on the willingness of the landowner, but actually how many they allowed. So if they allowed more, their application would be considered or would be ranked higher. So we're cleaning up that language to demonstrate that the more hunters they allow, the higher rank their application is.
Any questions, Drew?
Like some good cleanup stuff. Thanks, Deb.
Yep.
Thank you, Deb. Appreciate it. It's always good on the moment's notice, right? To have to respond right away, but we appreciate your ability to do that.
I had some of this draft language right in front of me, so it was easy.
Good. All right, thank you. So I think, did I miss anybody on home report? Mine is, everything out here is about bears. We have folks that are concerned about muley changes and understanding those and knowing all the intricacies and some of the things we talked about and knowing where you're at on the land and such. But out here, some folks have concerns about that. Bears are a big thing here. There was another bear euthanized recently northwest of Montana. And I heard from somebody involved in that it was an old large bear and it turned to eating cattle. So it was euthanized, and it was interesting because the bear had an abscess in it and was on the downhill side and had kept going from this harvest place where it was regularly at home, way over towards across the missions or near the missions to eat apples every fall, and then come back over here. They had had it collared for quite a while. Kind of an interesting story, and it turned out that it's probably pushing the record size bear that Montana has seen. So lots of encounters with grizzlies in this area. That's kind of the big talk. Fishing's good over here. People are still catching big kokanee and halter, but they're very deep. They're near the bottom of the lake, and you got to hit them on top of the head with about 3 pounds of lead. That's kind of an exaggeration, but okay. I just want to wrap up with appreciation back to the department for where we're at on that hunter landowner stewardship program and all of that progress, and each of you for being here today. I know there's a lot going on your landscape wherever you may be, so I appreciate your dedication. And the last thing is we'll be sending out some info on a potential December meeting. We talked about that last time, so we'll get that rolling here pretty quick so we can see if we can come together on that. I haven't talked to Jason or Deb, but I was thinking really if Lee's got a lot of big grasshoppers and a lot of birds, maybe we can go over to Lee and do a tour of the Cornwell place. Is that Big Muddy or Muddy Creek and get a real good see of what it's like over in his world. Lee.
Well, it's whatever you guys want to do. I'd say I'd go somewhere else. It doesn't look very good over here, right along the highways. The grasshoppers, the borrow pits look like you've withered a band of sheep in them in a lot of places. So everybody's got 60 bushel straw and 5 bushel wheat. So it's just kind of like Northeast Montana.
Yeah.
You got to be happy to live here.
Well, it's a wonderful place. For those of us that don't live there, we love going there. So.
And it's next year, Lee.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we'll push for a little, what do you call that? Grants and subsidies for the airlines to be flying into Glasgow so we can all get there in a quick hop. So, all right, if nobody has anything else, we will wrap this up, and you should be hearing from us later next week on some of these questions that we have left open so we can wrap them up and have a clear report to the governor and to the legislature as we go into the fall. So thank you all very much for your work and input, and hope you have a great rest of the week and you get all the rain you need everywhere you need it. All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Ed.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye-bye.